everyone, it's Hayes, and in today's video, as I mentioned in my last essay style video that was about this fandom and whether the show was above criticism, I had been planning a video about Nathalie. So today we're going to be talking about Nathalie's character and relationship development from season 1 to season 5. Now this first full arc of the show is over. Now a lot of this video will be based in fact, like we can all agree Nathalie did this thing in this episode, so there's going to be some fact-based discussion within this video, so we can all agree she did that thing in that episode. However, of course, it'll be up to you to decide if you agree with me that these writing decisions around Nathalie were good or not. It does seem to be a wildly held belief in the fandom from what I've seen that Nathalie is the best written character in the show, and I wholeheartedly agree. I love her. I think she is so heckin' well written, in my opinion. If you're like, you want to become a writer or you just want to get better at it and you're struggling with character, personally I would recommend to look at Nathalie and her development for you. She is a great example of a well written character. And if you want to know how to write a character terribly, then look at Chloe and Felix, right? The show has both extremes. They do an amazing job with Nathalie and a not so great job with a load of other characters too. So anyway, but I just love Nathalie. She was so unsuspecting. She doesn't do much until the season 2 finale, and then she just comes in, bam, as Catalyst, and then Mayura, totally unexpected, and she just gets better from there. She ages like fine wine. I say as if I even drink wine. I don't like alcohol, apart from vodka. Now when I say best written character, because I'm going to be referring to that a lot in this video, that word best, please don't confuse best with good. I get a lot of comments, because I've mentioned this before, that I think Nathalie's really well written. I get a lot of comments saying like, well, how can she be? How can you say she's the best written character when she's done bad things? Best here doesn't mean good. I mean, she's a well-written character in terms of her writing is good, the decisions they made with her narratively are good. I don't mean that Nathalie herself makes good decisions for the benefit of mankind. Sometimes she does, but for the most part she absolutely doesn't. Okay? I just mean the writing decisions around her are good, are the best, in my opinion. I'm not referring to her moral alignment here when I say best. Okay? I just mean how she's written, not like her morals. I know Nathalie isn't a good person, although I do think she definitely has the capacity to be a good person, and I hope we see that more in season 6 and following on from there. But you can have a well-written character who isn't on the good side. A character being evil or just bad or whatever kind of alignment they have isn't an excuse for them not to be well written and just to be like, ah, yeah, they're just evil. You can still have a well written villain, and actually in my opinion I think it's far easier to have a better written villain than it is a hero, just my opinion. But anyway, in my opinion, Nathalie is by far one of the best things about Miraculous Ladybug, so we're going to discuss how her relationships with Gabriel and Adrien develop, as well as Nathalie as just a character herself, which is what we're going to start with. So, Nathalie Sanker, the love of my life, but she wasn't always the love of my life, okay? In season 1 and 2, with the exception of the season 2 finale of course, she doesn't really do much. She's just Gaby Baby's assistant, who kind of sounds like she's powered by AI sometimes, and she also steals a scarf from a teenage girl. Ooh! Like, I don't know what else she was doing during the bubbler that meant she couldn't go out and get Adrien his regular celebratory pen. No idea. But anyway, point is, Nathalie doesn't do much in seasons 1 and 2, apart from the finale, but she's there. If you look at the season 1 and 2 episode list, she's in both seasons a fair amount, even if her role in seasons 1 and 2, apart from the finale, is a lot smaller compared to Nathalie at the end of season 5. By the time we get to season 5, Nathalie does a lot more in the show, she's a lot more prominent, she's a lot more featured. She's doing a lot more by the time we get to season 5, but season 1 and 2 Nathalie, she's kind of small fry. And I just really love how this was done. In seasons 1 and 2, Nathalie appears enough, you know, to give a presence. They didn't overdo it, she's not in every single episode, but you know, she's there, a feature in Adrien and Gaby Baby's lives. And you think about her occasionally, but like only as a no-nonsense assistant who isn't afraid to slap Audrey Bourgeois.
How dare you! You're fired!
I don't work for you, I work for Mr. Agrest.
Why didn't that happen? That really should have happened. Anyway, I think her presence was really well done. She is so unsuspecting in seasons 1 and 2, and I'm really good at guessing film plots. Like, if you've seen the film Reservoir Dogs, if you haven't, and if you're under the age of 18, don't watch it. It's about this gang who are going on a job. They're strangers though, they don't know each other, but one of them betrays the gang, and the whole film is basically them trying to work out who has betrayed them, which one of them has. However, the film is really unenjoyable when you work out who it was immediately, like I did. But I didn't suspect Nathalie at all, and bear in mind when Catalyst and Mayura came out, I think I was like 21, 22, 23, early 20s, definitely above the age group, the target audience for the show. I didn't have a clue, didn't guess it in the slightest. The way they kind of did Nathalie's presence really reminded me of the gun in Thelma and Louise. Again, don't watch it if you're not over 18, but it's about these two friends, Thelma and Louise, who are trying to escape America and go to Mexico, but they can't drive through Texas for reasons, so it's not impossible to get to Mexico without going through Texas, but it definitely does limit your options if you're not going to go through Texas. And one of the women decides to take a gun, and all you see of it at first is she kind of dangles it as she takes it out of a drawer, then she throws it into a bag. It's on screen long enough that you clock it, but so little you kind of forget about it, but when she brings it out to you, she's like, oh my god, I forgot, but I also remember, genius move. And the gun ends up being a huge deal in the film. It's a huge plot point. It's the same thing with Nathalie. She's on screen enough just so she's there, but honestly, in my opinion, like in season 1 and 2, apart from the finale, she's not even a side character, she's more like a background character, and she's more of there to legitimize Gabriel as a fashion designer, because the high up fashion designer would have an assistant, obviously. But you think she's a bit boring and not really that big of a deal, and you forget about it unless you want extra detail in your fan fiction, but then when she's in Gaby Baby's lair in Catalyst, it's like, oh my god, betrayal.
What? But you can't do this to me.
I still remember the first time I watched Catalyst and was like, so she's known all along. And without Nathalie having to really say anything, actually, as soon as Catalyst starts and we see her in the lair, it shows us that she's actually a really untrustworthy character. So Miraculous, as you all know, doesn't have a fixed perspective. It does stay with Marinette quite a lot, but it does also bounce around almost everyone, to be honest. We've even been inside Nino's ear, don't relive it. But the only time we're really with Nathalie, I think, in her perspective shift is during the scarf stealing scene in the bubbler, but they made a conscious choice not to show Nathalie's perspective more than that, and that we didn't get to know that she's known all along, and she's kept this from Adrien and also all of the audience. And then Catalyst is obviously followed up by the events of Mayura, where she ignores what Gaby Baby wants and uses the peacock Miraculous anyway. He's like, don't do it, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you over the sound of my outfit being far better than yours.
We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway.
Like, I'm more than sure that Gaby Baby was glad she saved him, because in my opinion, without Nathalie, he absolutely would have lost on Heroes Day. Right before Nathalie came in as Mayura, he was absolutely going to lose. But Nathalie ignores him because she does know better than him, and she's also prettier, and it shows just how much more intelligent she is than Gabriel, and that she does what she wants, like the queen she is. And to be honest, I think I loved her from the very first moment I saw her as Mayura, and I think that might be a shared experience. Similar things happen in other episodes in season 3 after Mayura has debuted, where she just kind of ignores Gabriel. Like in the episode Ladybug, she has her own agenda, but they do work together and become partners, and we see how scheming and vindictive Nathalie truly is in episodes like Miraculous. In Miraculous, Mayura mainly targets Cat Noir and Queen Bee during all the fight sequences, and I think it's one thing for her to attack Cat Noir because she doesn't know he's Adrien. We know she's Adrien, and it's a really cool fight to see visually that this lady, who's usually quite nice to Adrien, is now having a fight with him on the top of a hotel. Like, it's quite cool to see visually, but I don't mind it so much because Mayura has no idea that Cat Noir is Adrien. But to do it to Queen Bee and to fight with Queen Bee when Nathalie knows she's Chloe, everyone knows Chloe is Queen Bee at this point, a lot of people wouldn't do that. I think it's very different to attack Cat Noir, even though it's Adrien, because she doesn't know he's Adrien, but she knows Chloe is Queen Bee, and she does it anyway. Like, calm down, Nathalie. Do you not have anything else to do in your free time that you've got to fight a 14-year-old girl on the rooftops who you see every other week? Like, take up crochet or something. Please, you'd be great at it. Like everything else, I'm the #1 Nathalie simp at this point. But episodes like Miraculous show us just how cold Nathalie can be to get what she wants, which is here to help Gabriel. That's what she wants. And all of this showing is really amazing. They really need to look at what they did with Nathalie and apply it to the terrible storytelling we got in the Revo special. I talked in my video, I did like an essay style video on why I didn't like it and why I thought it was terrible, because they just told everything and they really didn't show anything at all. Nathalie is the perfect example of showing. Her behaviour shows us what kind of person she is. She doesn't walk up to Gaby Baby and tells him that, yeah, I'm cold, I'm manipulative, slightly untrustworthy, and I'm willing to enter into a toxic relationship with you. Do you want to form an alliance with me?
Do you want to form an alliance with me? Absolutely, I do. Good, good.
We are shown who Nathalie is through her actions. She doesn't just stare at the camera and tell us. We are shown who she is and what she is like through the behaviour she exhibits. And just in general, in season 3, her character does start to become more prominent. It's gradual. Again, she's not in every single episode, and when she is, she's not always Mayura. In episodes like Star Train and Annie Maestro, she's just Nathalie.
I'm just kidding.
But even these appearances are really important, where she reverts to her season 1 role. It maintains her presence in the show, but it also kind of makes you a bit nervous. You don't know if she's suddenly going to transform into Mayura and do something evil. It's so effectively done. You have no clue when she's going to strike at all. So it's just, she's amazingly written. And another amazing episode for her character is in the episode Felix. So she starts the episode as like normal Nathalie, as Gabriel's assistant, but when Felix dresses up as Adrien and she walks into the room, this woman, she does not hesitate in fighting all of these children. And I hardly ever see anyone talk about this fight. Everyone, when they talk about this episode, is pretty much usually concerned with Felix, which I get. He's a brand new character. He also looks and sounds like Adrien, which is always fun. He attempts to assault Ladybug. He gets 3 people akumatized all at once and then uses them to talk to Hawk Daddy, and then also steals this ring that also has a lot of mystery around it, which turns out isn't that interesting at all. So Felix, in his debut episode, does quite a lot, and what he does completely overshadows what Nathalie does. No one really mentions Nathalie's fight in that episode, but we are shown she can fight extremely well outside of being Mayura. And again, she is also willing to fight kids. Nathalie, you need a new hobby or I'm going to have to call social services. It's quite worrying at this point, alright? But like I said, what Felix does in his debut episode is so much more prominent than what Nathalie does, so we kind of completely forget about her. But it does show us how ruthless she is. And this ruthlessness is further shown in the episode Ladybug. In my opinion, prior to this episode, I would think most people watching the show hadn't really considered that senti monsters were like human beings, especially when before this we've had senti monsters like Feast and Reflectol, who neither of which look like human, they look like something completely different. But in Ladybug, when we have Sentibug, that's when we're really for the first time presented with the idea that senti monsters can just be like normal human beings with thoughts and feelings. And then Mayura snaps her anyway, again showing how cold she is and that she'll do anything to help Gaby Baby. And then we have the season 3 finale, and this ruthlessness and coldness extends to herself as well. Nathalie knows she's getting progressively more and more ill by using the Peacock Miraculous, but she does it anyway to help Gaby Baby, or Emily, depending on who you think Nathalie is in love with and trying to save. Personally, I did watch the show as a Gabe Nath shipper from season 2 finale onwards, and I do think it is more effective if she's in love with Gabriel over Emily. So she loves Gabriel so much that she's willing to die so he can be happy with Emily again, because that's what she wants the most, for the person she's in love with to be happy again, even if that happiness is not found with her. I think it's amazing and it adds so much more richness to her character with that being her motivation. And she's also not just doing all of this because she's a psychopath and that she's pure evil, although I do think that's completely valid. For example, the Joker in Batman. I know a lot of recent retellings like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker that tries to come up with like a way to explain why Joker is the way he is. Joker appeared in the first ever issue of Batman, and the creator's intention with Joker is that he's just a psychopath, he is just this way. There is no reason why Joker is the way he is. Joker's just insane, and he always has been since he was born. That's me. Joker's motivation is he has none. He's like, I'm just this way, this is who I am. Accept me. Although I do love the motivation when I read it sometimes in fanfictions that Joker's actually in love with Batman. I love that. Anyway, back to Miraculous. I could talk about the Joker all day. Nathalie's not doing this because she's pure evil, but rather she doesn't mind doing some really awful things to help the one she loves. But you also get the same outcome really if you view her being in love with Emily instead. I think both are valid ways to look at it. In the Emily route, it's more of like, okay, well, I want the woman I love back, even if when she comes back she's still going to be with Gabriel, but just having her back, having her be alive is enough for me. In a way, Nathalie is actually quite selfless, although she does hurt a lot of people to get there, but whichever one she's in love with, Gabriel or Emily, or maybe both, she's actually quite a selfless person, but she kind of exhibits that in an evil kind of way, which is really interesting. So in season 4 of Miraculous, Mayura takes a backseat because Nathalie is too ill to use the peacock, apart from to make Optigami, which seemed to have happened, I don't know, within like the first 10 episodes of the show, because we see in Optigami a flashback to Mega Leech. We see some of the scenes from Mega Leech from Optigami's perspective. So before Mega Leech, which was episode 10, but unsure when exactly. However, just because Nathalie isn't being Mayura, she's not in that costume, doesn't mean Nathalie's development slows down. We see her now in season 4, she's becoming Mayura as Nathalie because she can no longer transform and put on the costume. So in seasons 1 and 2, she was just a serious assistant who moves to also being Mayura in season 3, but she often doesn't really show that Mayura cunning side to her when she's not transformed. Most of the time when Nathalie is Nathalie, she's in her red jumper and blazer suit thing, Nathalie's a fairly neutral character, apart from when in Felix, when she fought a gang of children. It's just great. She's only really evil as Mayura, but it does kind of creep through in certain points in season 3 as Nathalie. For example, like in Miraculous, the first real time I can think of her doing it is when Nathalie is discussing Lila with Gaby babies and she's like, maybe we can use Miss Rossi's psychological talents, and I'm like, what psychological talents? She lies about the most random stuff that is easily Googleable. Calm down, no.
Calm down, calm down.
So in season 4, Nathalie as Nathalie starts to show and embody her Mayura persona, which is my favourite video game, Persona 5, which ironically also has Keith Silverstein, is that his name? Gabriel's voice actor for the English dub in it, and he's also the main villain, and he's also bald, and he's in running to be the Prime Minister of Japan, or whatever the equivalent of an MP, a Minister of Parliament, is in Japan. He's running for something in the government, I think. I don't remember, I only really remember the theme tune of the video game. It's a great video game though, 10 out of 10 recommend. If you get to the final level, you get to run around the National Diet in Tokyo, which the National Diet is just a name for Japan's Parliament or Congress, whatever the... their thing where the government do their thing. Thanks. Really good game. Anyway, back to Nathalie in season 4. So while she is Nathalie, she shows her Mayura side as Nathalie. So for example, in episodes like Daddy Aggress, she's in bed for the entire thing, but she's scheming with Gabriel. Optigami, again, she's in bed, scheming with Gabriel, coming up with plans. Dearest Family, she is FaceTiming this man in his lair, trying to get the Mega Akuma to work for the first time. That's the first episode they appear in. And again, they also do some scheming together in the episode Risk.
A risk.
Nathalie is getting more ill, so she knows she can't use the Peacock Miraculous anymore, and that illness was a hindrance to Gaby Baby in episodes like Ladybug in season 3, as it caused him to drop the Scarlet Akumas and they had to go with a different plan. So Nathalie starts to bring out that more cunning side as Nathalie. She starts to embody the Mayura persona as Nathalie outside of using the Miraculous. And then we move on to her character development in season 5, and it's super duper interesting. If evolution hadn't happened or hadn't gone the way it ended, I think she would have carried on the same, helping Gabriel where she could and being this like really strong partnership together where they just had each other's backs. And they were arguably sort of falling in love with each other. To me, they kind of were in season 3 especially. I think they absolutely were in episodes like Ladybug and season 3 finale, to me. No, to me. You can disagree, but to me, they had feelings for each other during season 3, absolutely. But the episode Evolution did happen, and it reveals also how much Nathalie does now care about herself. Like I said before, it does seem quite selfless of her to do what she's done so far. She has been quite literally slowly sacrificing her life to help this man, but she's dying, and you know, there's only so much you can do before you eventually die, obviously, thank you, Hayes. Especially when he could have saved her life in Evolution, and he was like, actually, I hate this 14-year-old girl more. I care about that far more than saving the life of my wife and Nathalie, so let's go for Ladybug rather than my wife. Crazy man. So Nathalie just goes to town on Gabriel, shouting at him. Absolutely she should have. And it also shows us just how much she does care about herself, because she's getting worse and worse. She's not getting better. This has gone too far. She's had enough. You can't leave a queen waiting, Gabriel. And this is furthered in episodes like Passion. She stands there and she tells Gabriel exactly what he's going to do to her Akuma, and again, it's for her own gain again. And to be honest, at this point, if she could have got the Butterfly Miraculous herself, she would have. And in my opinion, it is a bit of a missed opportunity for her character that she never even tried. It just seemed a bit strange that she was sleeping in the same house as this man. Go and steal it. What was he gonna do? He's nothing, he's asleep, go steal it. And she'd also look amazing. But yeah, I do think that was a bit of a missed opportunity for her character. Probably one of the only missed opportunities with her in my opinion, but I've always been like, why wouldn't you do that? I would have. Even if I wasn't dying, if I knew he had it, I'd be like, yeah, I'd take it, absolutely. Like, obviously. However, this episode also highlights her changing allegiance from Gaby Baby to Adrien, who by the time we get to season 5, the father and son relationship, not that it was great in season 1 to begin with, but by the time we get to season 5, it's just completely broken down, and they have a very distant relationship compared to before, which was already distant, don't get me wrong. It's like, they may as well live on different continents by the time we get to season 5. And now Nathalie, in episodes like Passion, it shows us that she wants to protect Adrien, which becomes her new motivation, or part of her motivation, after Evolution. Nathalie, I feel like, kind of resigns herself to the fact that she knows she's gonna die, so she wants to help Adrien while she still can, because she knows his dad will also die if he doesn't make the wish after the cataclysm in Destruction. And we also get more of this protective behaviour in episodes like Transmission. Honestly, in earlier seasons I was never sure how Nathalie felt about Adrien. I definitely feel like in seasons 1 and 2 that this was very much just a job for her, and yeah, she did take care of Adrien, but she didn't really care about him, she was just taking care of him. But her character does progress, and by the time we get to season 5 it shows how much she really does care for him, and this includes trying to stop Gaby Baby from hurting his son, even if akumatizing Adrien, like in Transmission, could mean them winning and Nathalie surviving. Even though she is quite rude to Gaby Baby about it at some times, including body slamming him in the kitchen once. But her protection of Adrien does show a softer side to Nathalie where Adrien is concerned, not the body slamming part, obviously, that's not part of the softness. But this is why I like Nathalie's character so much. She's quite complex, but it doesn't feel complicated to watch her. Like, so she has like a very neutral kind of stance at the start of the show, and then she has a teamwork, borderline, toxic, unrequited romance with Gabriel, and then it's like toxic employment place with him. But at the same time she develops this really soft relationship with Adrien and becomes like a mother figure towards him. Not a mother replacement, just a mother figure towards him. And there's all these different things going on. She's actually quite a complex character, but it doesn't feel like it's complicated to watch. It's executed so well that it just feels like it's a natural progression. At no point did I ever question like, oh my god, what's Nathalie doing? Do the same way this whole time I've been like, what are they doing with Chloe? This doesn't make sense. I've never once felt that way about Nathalie. Every single move they've made with Nathalie, I've been like, yeah, got it. Didn't even question it, because it was just done so well, felt so naturally done. However, Nathalie does also show this softer side towards Gabriel in episodes like Intuition. She kind of sees that Gabriel is getting worse, he's not getting better, they can't use the snake, which was their like biggest, most powerful Miraculous they had left to use, and they can no longer use it because for both of them it's going to speed up how long they've got left to live. So in Intuition she becomes quite sympathetic towards Gabriel, but again because of Adrien, because they're both gonna die and no one's going to be here for him. But then in episodes like Protection, and she sees what Gaby Baby is doing, manipulating Adrien with the amok, and she's like, no, absolutely not, you're not trying to force Adrien apart from his girlfriend just because you don't like this 14-year-old. No, we're not doing that. So she's still very much on Adrien's side. Like I said, it's just a natural progression. Nothing feels forced like what they do with Chloe and Felix. The choices for Nathalie make sense, and in the end she's just like, forget this, and gets out her crossbow. Amazing. And then she also helps Ladybug in confirmation, although I definitely feel she could have been in clearer with those instructions, because if I was Marinette I would have been even more confused than she was. I'd been like, what?
What does it mean?
Overall though, her arc from unassuming assistant to femme fatale to Adrien Protection Squad is so heckin' well done, and other than being a bit confused as to why she shouldn't try and take the butterfly for herself, I think the whole thing was amazing and I can't really fault it anywhere. So moving on to relationships, Nathalie does talk to a fair amount of people throughout the show, most of the cast at some points, but we're only going to focus on Gabriel and Adrien in this video. In my opinion, Nathalie doesn't really speak to anyone else enough to have a substantial relationship with for me to be able to analyse properly. If this was a Marinette video, we'd have loads of people. She has really good relationships with a lot of people, but she is the main character, so that makes sense. So I'm only really going to focus on Gabriel and Adrien. And I think that's fine to only have two deep and meaningful relationships in the show. Like I said, she doesn't have a huge role, she's not on screen all the time for a lot of the show, and I think that's completely fine. I think if in doubt, always go for the simpler route, less is more. If you're not confident as a writer that you can brilliantly show a relationship between Nathalie and everyone else in the show, do less and do them well. That's what I always think. Just do less but do a really, really good job. I think that's completely fine. And I think her relationships with Gaby Baby and with Adrien is shown really well, so we're going to start with Gabriel. So when Nathalie and Gabriel are concerned, we don't actually get a great deal of insight into how their relationship is until the end of season 2 for the finale, which I think is completely fine because Nathalie's role before that isn't important enough in the show to show us anything more between them as just a boss and assistant. Like I said earlier, Nathalie's role in season 1 and 2, apart from the finale, is more of like a background character to make Gabriel look more legitimate as a big deal. She doesn't really have much of a function other than that. But after the episode Mayura, she goes from his assistant to really being his only emotional support, because we see after she's been Mayura that she truly does know what Gabriel is going through. She's the only one who could understand because she's the only one who knows at this point. Unsure when exactly Tomoe found out, but we're not going to be talking about her in this video since they don't really say anything to each other, to be honest. But Nathalie will pretty much do whatever Gabriel asks of her prior to Evolution, basically, the end of Evolution. Nathalie, in my opinion, is one of the most intelligent characters in the show, but because she loves Gabriel, or because she loves Emily, whichever way you look at this, she will help Gabriel and do whatever he asks of her, and it's why their partnership works so well. Gabriel and Nathalie's relationship in season 3 and season 4 is a really good mirroring of Ladybug and Cat Noir's relationship. In my opinion, Marinette and Adrien are of roughly about the same intelligence levels, but it works well between them because Cat Noir is, for most of the time, more than willing, more than happy to listen and do as he's told by Ladybug. And it's why a relationship like Lila and Felix wouldn't work, whether as a partnership, a team like this, or as a romantic relationship, because just by virtue of what they're like, neither of them would be willing to listen to the other person, and they'd all just be trying constantly to one-up each other. It just absolutely wouldn't work. But because Ladybug and Cat Noir are willing to listen to the other person, and so are Gabriel and Nathalie until season 5, that's why it works so well between them, even if Nathalie is the more intelligent one between the two of them. And Nathalie does have a really good motivation of being in love with Gabriel, so that she's helping him so he can be happy once more with Emily, or of course that she loves Emily and she's helping Gabriel so that Emily can be with her family again. At the end, whichever one you look at, Nathalie isn't going to be with ultimately Gabriel or Emily, depending who she's in love with, but she just wants either of them, both of them, to be happy once more, so she's helping them. Whichever way you watch the show, it's still a really good motivation. I'm personally a Gabe Nath shipper. I know a lot of people prefer M-Nath? Is that the, I don't know the proper name for it. I think it's cute, whichever way, but I am preferably a Gabe Nath shipper, which is now in the grave, for the man is dead. But like I said, whichever way you have viewed the show, I still think it's a really good motivation as to why she's helping, because she wants, whichever one of them it is, to be happy, even if it means sacrificing her own health temporarily, because I definitely feel Nathalie went into this knowing the peacock was damaged. She was well aware when she grabbed it, I'm pretty sure she knew. But she was fine with getting hurt because she assumed Gaby Baby would win and heal her with the wish. And she was right. She's a queen. So Gabriel and Nathalie's relationship continues like this, getting deeper, arguably a bit more toxic, until during the season 4 finale when Gaby Baby gives Nathalie one half of Adrien's amok, symbolising just how much he does trust her. He did obviously trust Nathalie with Adrien before, since she was under his care for a lot of the show, but that was just like a very generic looking after him, almost like a babysitter, whereas in Risk, the ring is symbolic that he's trusting Nathalie to take care of Adrien completely, because he knows with this ring she could literally do anything to him, and like that ring is the symbol of how much trust Gabriel has in Nathalie. However, season 5 hits. Up until Evolution, Gabe-Nath, whether romantic Gabe-Nath, platonic Gabe-Nath, however you viewed it, the Gabe-Nath partnership team up was very strong up until the end of Evolution, and I guess there was a danger of it going kind of stagnant and getting a bit boring. There are really only two ways you could go with it. It kind of progressed to it getting more toxic or even romantic, even though Gabriel was still in love with his wife, all the way it went. And because of Gabriel's actions in Evolution, where he kind of loses his way about saving Emily, and by extension saving Nathalie, and he's more bothered about defeating a child, they really both need hobbies like ice skating. What about that? Oh my god, ice skating partners. It would be, oh my god, it would be amazing. I wouldn't be able to visually watch that, I'd start crying. But Evolution really changes things between them. It would have been very easy for them to stay like that or get progressively more toxic together, but I really love that they changed it, even though it did break my Gabe-Nath heart. So while she does still help him in season 5, her motivation here this time is about Adrien, which we see in episodes like Protection and Transmission, and while she is still helping him, like I said, she's a lot more standoffish and cold towards him as well. That kind of comes out in her character in their relationship together. I just really wish she had a stronger motivation for going to murder him with her crossbow in confirmation, because whilst I loved it and it was amazing to see, I didn't really feel like their relationship had progressed to a bad enough place for her to want to try and kill him. I love the idea, but I don't feel like the hatred was quite there for her to do that, in my opinion. So lastly, we're going to look at Adrien. As for Adrien, I love this relationship together. We see them in Origins for the first time together, and it's just very cold between them. She's just kind of doing what Gabriel says, and to Adrien, she's very much, she's just an assistant. And you contrast what they're like together in Origins to Nathalie and Adrien in episodes like Protection and Passion, when Nathalie's using the amok to counter Gabriel's orders, and she becomes a mother figure towards him by the end of season 5. For example, in season 3, Nathalie's getting more ill, and Adrien quite obviously notices, and he's like, is something gonna happen to her, like that happened with Mum? So their relationship with them gets really strong as Nathalie's relationship deepens with Gabriel, and also she becomes a more prominent character in the show. And by the time we get to season 5, Nathalie is protecting Adrien from Gabriel quite a lot. If you compare what they're like in season 5 together compared to season 1, it's night and day between Adrien and Nathalie's relationship. So Nathalie and Adrien, in my opinion, don't really get close until season 3. Like I said, in season 1 and 2, she's just my father's assistant in earlier seasons, but after she becomes Miura, her role steps up in the show, and then it also kind of brings her relationship to the forefront, which is why we get a lot more relationship development from season 3 onwards with Nathalie, and she just gets more time on screen compared to seasons 1 and 2. In my opinion, after Gaby Baby, Nathalie is very much the next main character in terms of the adult leads, not obviously the kids, it's Marinette and Adrien, but in terms of the adult leads, Nathalie is the next main character. However, Nathalie isn't always like that. Like I said, in season 1 and 2, she doesn't have a very prominent role, but then after Miura, she gets more prominent in the plot, and becoming more prominent to the mainline plot also means her relationships with Adrien and Gabriel become more prominent as well, and I really like how it all kind of develops in parallel. And then by passion in season 5, Adrien's going to Nathalie for advice about girls like he would have done, I'm sure, if Emily was still there. Their relationship isn't as pronounced as Gabriel and Nathalie's relationship is, since Adrien spends more on-screen relationships with the kids versus the adults. Same with Gabriel, his relationships in the show are more focused on him and the other adults. But Adrien and Nathalie don't have a ton of scenes together during the show, and a lot of the initial scenes are just like, Adrien, you have fencing practice after school. And it's, you know, really riveting, kept me on the edge of my seat, but it's really slow. It develops in tandem with how Gaby Baby starts to view Nathalie, and also because Adrien has lost his mum. It's really well done how Adrien and Gaby Baby's relationships with Nathalie develop in parallel to each other and also in time with how she steps up in plot in the show, and they also end up in very different places. Gabriel and Nathalie's relationship goes from business to let's be psychopaths together to super duper toxic, whereas Adrien and Nathalie's relationship goes from she's just an assistant to Adrien viewing her like his mum. So there you go, besties. I know a lot of you have been asking for this video for a while. I know I'm not the only Nathalie lover in this fandom. A lot of people love Nathalie. I think she's one of the best written characters, and again, don't think that means she's a good person, although I definitely do think, I really hope in season 6 we will see her do some good things now it's all over for her. Like, she's not going to have access to any Miraculous, although I would love to see her as Mayor again just for the outfit. It'd be so cool. I definitely think she has capacity for good, and I hope we'll see it, and I just definitely think that's the next natural progression for her character. For her, it's over, they've won, and while she would have liked to have Gabriel back or Emily back, depending on who she was in love with to you, I think Nathalie will be okay. Whether she enters in a relationship with someone else, don't know. I know a lot of people also ship her with Emily. I wouldn't mind it, I think I'd quite like it. I just want Nathalie to be happy and just, yeah, maybe have a rest, have a break. We've all been through a lot. But anyway, that's pretty much everything I have to say. I hope I've convinced you that Nathalie is the best written character in the show. I didn't go over absolutely every tiny little thing she does in the show because we'd be here forever, but I feel like I hit most of the major points of her arc. But anyway, besties, of course I would love to know what you think, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!